Da 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 da. Happy Halloween, everybody! Oh, it's not every day that you get to do a One Piece review on Halloween. It's not every year either. This year, I have decided to be the Fire Mage. Oh yeah, check it out. Yeah, that's real fire right there. Yeah. Fire Mage. This is my Fire Mage cloak and this cool fire hat that I have. And the staff, I actually don't know much about the staff. I bought it off of a homeless man. He said that it came from a far-off land of whimsy and wonder and microtransactions. I took him at his word. So, there's that. Anyway, today we're going to be reviewing One Piece, chapter 1164, titled Davy's Blood. Aw, man, I should have been the Blood Mage. That sounds way cooler, and I didn't have to change the color of the outfit either. Oh, well, I guess I'm just the Fire Mage. There we go. Okay, that makes me feel a little better. Anyway, Yamato's cover story has concluded, so now we're just doing fan requests again. Last week was Luffy parkouring with a bunch of monkeys. This one is Perona, a nice Perona fan request of chasing after a rabbit with her ghosts. The rabbit in question is actually Randolph. Do you remember Randolph? He was the rabbit homie at Whole Cake Island. He's one of the first homies we meet on the island that's running around. And I remember this character so well. I thought Randolph was gonna be so relevant. I don't know if I was the only one, but I think it's just because when he was one of the first homies we met on the island, he was running around, and Carrot specifically mentions, like, okay, well, he's not using electros, so he cannot be a mink, so he's something else, right? And very much so, he was just a rabbit that was given a soul by Big Mom Soul No Mi to make him an anthropomorphic rabbit that dresses in, like, medieval attire and uses a spear to fight, right? And he gave the Straw Hats a little bit of trouble there, but honestly, after that first little meeting in the seducing woods, he kind of just disappears and doesn't do anything else for the entire arc. But he's here now in sort of an Alice in Wonderland spin. Perona is going after the rabbit. Randolph is holding a pocket watch, just like in Alice in Wonderland. And it seems like this is so interesting to me. It's a moment where Perona is jumping at Randolph, and she has a little thought bubble of Mihawk, because Randolph's hat looks very similar to Mihawk's hat. So, I don't know, it seems to imply that she's like, Mihawk, it's been so long, and she's like going to hug him, but it's actually Randolph instead. I don't know, that's kind of interesting. And you know, because they did live together for a while, maybe there's something there, I don't know. Also, Perona's ghosts have rabbit ears, which is another thing that Oda might have just included here for aesthetic, but it would make sense that Perona can basically shape and control her ghosts, right? Like, make them appear as whatever she wants them to. They take that very goofy, derpy appearance because I guess Perona just finds it cute, but if she wanted to make her ghosts look all intimidating and spooky and scary, I don't really see any reason why she wouldn't be able to do that, right? It's her devil fruit power, right? Anyway, that was really nice just to see Perona again. We still don't know what's up with her. She was on Hachinosu, she freed Kobe, and was like, you're gonna help me free Moria, and then we immediately cut to outside where Kobe is by himself running around with, you know, the freed slaves. Perona is nowhere to be found. Moria is nowhere to be found. So I'm guessing he was true to his word. I mean, it is Kobe after all, so I'm thinking they did free Moria, and then Moria and Perona were like, okay, we're gonna get out of here, you go out there and, you know, escape with the slaves or whatever you want to do, and then Mori and Perona, you know, escape some other way, out like the back entrance of Hachinosu or something. So, still waiting to see what's happening with them, but it was nice to see these characters again, and nice to see Randolph again. I miss that rabbit. Alright, so we continue where we left off. Where did we leave off? Where we had this epic combo attack between some of the heaviest hitters in the entire One Piece world, and it didn't really do much. So then Rocks decided to step up to bat, and he took out his mighty sword that we still don't know the name of. What's the name of Rocks' sword? That's a fun little Halloween activity. Anyway, Rocks started to slice and dice up Imu like a sausage, but that, to no avail, didn't do anything either. Instead, Imu took out their weird shadow tendrils and stabbed Rocks, and Rocks began to change as Imu activated Domi Reversi! No, not Domi Reversi! It's the highest level of dark magic. Not even a fire mage such as myself could counter Domi Reversi. But I could do this. This is literally all I can do. I can't even make more flames than this. This is it. This is the apex of my power, but It's more than most people could do. All right. So anyway, Roger is looking up at this display. They're all looking up because they have no idea what's even going on here right now. Honestly, Roger, Garp, Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, Rocks. I mean, Rocks knows because he's met Imu before, but everybody else has no idea what this even is right now, right? One of the Gorosei transformed into this weird shadow monster. So a lot of people brought up, like, you know, Garp went to go punch Saturn in the last chapter. Garp might not even know that this is a separate entity. All he was told was, this is a member of the Gorosei, and Garp said, I've never even met a member of the Gorosei before, so that's what they look like. So for all Garp knows, this is just a Gorosei, right? He doesn't know anything about Imu or the Shadow Lord of the entire world or anything like that, right? So Roger's looking up at this thing and he's like, dude, our attacks did nothing to this. Like, what even is this thing, right? And so everybody else is just confused and looking up. The only person I would say that has genuine maybe concern for Rocks' well-being is maybe Whitebeard here, because Big Mom honestly doesn't care. Kaido, I mean, maybe Kaido. I'll throw in Kaido a little bit, because I think he kind of looked up to Rocks and Whitebeard as sort of like his big brothers, so maybe he's a little concerned. But anyway, he's way at the top, and so they're having a little bit of a conversation, Imu and Rocks, as Rocks is being corrupted by the evil of Domi Reversi. He's like trying to resist it, and he's resisting it rather well. The way that we've seen Domi Reversi work up until now is that Imu will use like the game pieces and actually like flip people on the ground like we saw with the giants. There seems to be a brief moment where they are aware of what's happening and they're like, no, I don't want to be Domi Reversi'd, and then they get flipped and they're instantly evil. This is a little bit of a different method. This is like a direct injection of the evil from Imu themselves. But even in this case, Rocks is resisting it rather well, to the point where Imu even says like, how obstinate. It looks like I'm gonna have to turn up the evil. There's like a little dial that's like, it's like, ah! You shouldn't scoff at humans, you wild beast, right? And he says, Davy D. Jones. That's the name of the previous king of the world. Whoa, we're dropping lore. And so Rocks is beginning to grow fangs. We saw this in the last chapter, but other than that, seems to be maintaining his own appearance pretty well here. Imu gets pissed at that, okay? Pay attention, everybody. Anything in this series that makes Imu agitated, anything that pushes their buttons, okay? Because that might be ultimately the key to beating them. We're not exactly sure, but that definitely pushes a button right there. Imu is like, insolent fool! That wretch was never the king! Not for a single moment! Thou hast no place in fate that binds Mu and Davy! Alright, whoa, okay, so Imu, look, okay. You're gonna have to slow down because everything you say is like really important. Imu is just like, I feel like, it really is an anachronism. I feel like Imu is saying things in the regard of like the way it was like 900 years ago, or maybe like even further back than that, but nobody now even understands anything of what they're saying, right? So Imu is talking about these characters maybe as if they're still around or they recently perished or something. Imu's been living at the top of a mountain in a castle isolated for a few centuries, so might not be up with the times too much. Also, if there's this idea, since Rocks called him the King of Rats, or the Rat King in the last chapter. The Rat King is all the rats tied together with the tail. I got that, but then a lot more people put it up like as an actual theory of like, wait a minute, what if it's all the original kings of the Allied forces, save for Lily, who is the Nefeltari that left? Aside from that family, all the other families had the original rulers. What if they're all like amalgamed together in this shadow monster of Imu? And there was an Imu Neurona way back in the day, so maybe Imu Neurona was the one that initiated this ritual or served as like the host body. Like, it is originally Imu Neurona's body, but then like 18 other souls just like got like, you know, pushed together into it, creating this like shadow monster. That's a cool theory. I like that. And also for that reason, the way they speak is very old-fashioned, which goes all the way back to that time. And then also the things they're saying is like, that wretch was never king. You have no place in the fate that binds Mu and Davy. Remember, Mu is the way that Imu refers to themselves. It's like their own personal pronoun kind of thing, right? They're kind of referring to themselves in like the second person. It's really weird, but like, that's the way they refer to themselves, all right? And so Mu and Davy. So they're now referring to something along the lines of like, okay, Rocks D. Zebek wanted to be king of the world. That was something that was stated a long time ago by Sengoku, but then again, we don't even know how reliable of a narrator Sengoku is at this point. But it really does seem that, yeah, he wanted to be the king of the world or was interested in king of the world. Rocks knew stuff that most people don't know, all right? He kind of knew the secrets of a lot of things. How did he find out about that? Who knows? Maybe like a journal that was passed down through the Davy clan or something like that, right? But he 100% states right here, Davy D. Jones was the name of the previous king of the world. Imu says they weren't. I'm honestly a little bit more going with Imu on this one, because Imu was most likely there at the time, so it might have been something that would have been up for debate. Like, even at the time of when this was occurring during the Void Century, maybe Davy declared themselves as like, I'm the king of the world now, you know? And then maybe some people were like, yeah, Davy D. Jones, king of the world, all right, we'll rally behind you. And then Imu never accepted that person as king. So from Imu's perspective, was never a king, but a lot of people did view them as a king. The best way for me to look at it that way. But Imu was most likely there. Rocks is probably learning about this from a secondhand source, from another source, all the way back to that time period, right? Unless Rocks has some ability to commune with the dead, which it's One Piece. I'm not going to throw that completely out the window. But yeah, there seems to be a disagreement here, right? And Imu mentions the fate that binds Davy and Mu. Also, I'm assuming Joy Boy is included in there too. He is going to mention Joy Boy, Rocks is, in a moment. So all of this stuff kind of binds together in this fate that it seems Imu is very afraid of and gets agitated when anybody brings it up, and is trying to wipe these people from the world, wipe their wills from the world so they never show their ugly heads again. That seems to be the ultimate goal of Imu that we can glean so far. Anyway, after Imu gets all agitated and gets like, like, he's like, how dare you? You don't mention him. He was never the king. Rocks is like, hey, you shouldn't get so scared. You shouldn't be so agitated. It was just a name after all. If this Davy D. Jones character was never a king and is long dead and you have nothing to worry about, then why are you getting so angry, buddy? So it is definitely pissing him off. It's pissing off him big time. Rocks says straight to his face, which you gotta love Rocks in this chapter. He's given Imu the business. He's just like, you've been afraid for a long time, haven't you? Afraid that someday someone's going to inherit the will of Davy and he's going to fulfill the promise. You're scared shitless. You can't sleep at night, can you? Because you're worried that at some point someone's going to realize the will of Davy and is going to carry it out, and that's going to be your worst nightmare, right? And so Rocks goes on to say, I wonder who scares you the most. Is it Davy D. Jones or is it Joy Boy maybe? So, pretty clear confirmation right here. These are two separate characters, which is good. Vegapunk stated that Joy Boy was the first pirate, and then Davy D. Jones was also mentioned to be a really old pirate. I don't know if Davy Jones was ever mentioned to be the first pirate like Joy Boy was, but definitely a pirate that lived during the Void Century. So, I don't know, maybe Joy Boy was the first pirate and Davy D. Jones was the second pirate. I don't know. Clearly parallels between Luffy and Blackbeard. Joy Boy was the Luffy or the Roger of his day. Davy D. Jones was the Rocks or the Blackbeard of his day. Although at this point, given how we have Rocks' personality and we have Teach's personality as Blackbeard, they're a little different enough. I mean, there's similarities, but I wonder if Davy D. Jones was more like Rocks or more like his son. That's very interesting to see how that character was going to be depicted. Oda did draw him in sort of like a cartoonish style at one point. So I'm actually kind of hoping that the original Davy D. Jones doesn't look exactly like this, but has a similar design or something, like the same kind of shirt, that or the bandana. That would actually be kind of interesting, right? So, Rocks knows a lot about the Void Century, right? And he's saying all this stuff, and he's just like, hey, I know what you're really afraid of, you king of rats, And so, Imu is just like, cease this endless babble. They shall never resurface so long as thou fades into oblivion. So that's essentially the idea. And we all know that anybody that bears the will of D is an enemy of God. Does this mean the will of D just stands for the will of Davy? I mean, it it kind of is pushing towards that a little bit here. However, Imu's strategy is a simple one. You know, try to eliminate everybody that bears the will of D from history, and if anybody seems to be getting a little bit too close to fulfilling that promise, to carrying out the will of these characters from the Void Century, either Domi Reversi them or eradicate them or wipe them out somehow, okay? It's always interesting because, like, when it comes to characters that have the will of D, there's a few that pop up in the world every now and then. Like, even Luffy, way back in the East Blue, when he got his first bounty, it said right there on his wanted poster, Monkey D. Luffy. So, I don't know. I just feel like if Imu was serious about this and wanted to truly and utterly eradicate everybody that has the will of D, I don't know, send like Kizaru after Luffy when he had like 30 million berries, and that would have just taken care of the problem immediately. Or send a God's Knight, or if you wanted to be super secretive, yeah, send a God's Knight or send Cypher Pool Zero. Some people have come up with the idea that like the reason the Gorosei or Imu didn't do that when Luffy was still beginning is because maybe there's so many, not so many, but over the centuries, there would have been quite a few members of the Will of D that just don't go anywhere. And some of them aren't even pirates, like Porcus D. Rouge. She wasn't a pirate. She wasn't a revolutionary. She was just a mom that hung out on an island in the south. That was it, right? So there might be some members of the Will of D that just live in obscurity or hide away. There might be other members that become pirates, but they don't go anywhere and they end up getting wiped out pretty early on in their journey. But I don't know. I mean, like, if you have the God's Knights at your disposal, and if you have this clandestine secret operative like Cypher Pool Zero at your disposal, you don't have to be all public with the Marines and sending after admirals. You could literally be, as soon as somebody with the Will of D shows up anywhere in the world and it's public knowledge, you'd be like, send a God's Knight after that person. I want them dead, no questions asked. I don't want it to be in the papers, just end it, right? Like, I don't know, seems smart. Then of course you get somebody like Garp though, who's in the Marines as a Vice Admiral that has the Will of D, you know? And then you have Dragon, who maybe they didn't know that Dragon had the Will of D when he joined the Marines. Maybe he just called himself Monkey Dragon. You know, but then again, Garp has it, so it's pretty obvious that Dragon had it too. So the second Dragon defected and went off to form the Freedom Fighters, I feel like there would have been an opportunity there from when he left the Marines to when he formed the Freedom Fighters. You probably could have eliminated him. I don't know. Seems like Imu and the Gorosei kind of suck at their job, if we're being honest here. So now after Rocks has given Imu the business, I think Imu is trying to flip that back on Rocks a little bit. Imu starts calling Rocks just Davy at this point, which his real name is Davy D. so I'm assuming Imu is well aware of that fact at this point. Imu says, "Oh, Davy, Mu has found the perfect soldiers now, a certain nation of indecisive giants." And then you have Rocks, it's like, "Giants, you bastard! Stay away from Harold! He's my best friend, he just wants peace!" Who the fuck is Harold? Harold? Who's that guy? Rocks just brings up a random character out of nothing. I don't even know what this is. This is a flashback all about God Valley. You're dropping a new character. Oh, the giant guy! Yeah, that dude! Oh, yeah, Loki's dad! And Hiruden's dad! Oh, that's right! Wait a minute, weren't we on Elbaf? Weren't we on Elbaf running around fighting God's Knights? Whoa! That feels weird. It feels like a dream that we woke up from. And or are we still dreaming? I don't know. Oh yeah, Harold was mentioned. Damn, okay. So, yeah, Imu brings up that like, ah yes, the giants. They've wanted to join us for quite some time. I have a perfect army of soldiers. This is an unprecedented opportunity to, you know. A sovereign this pliable may never appear again. I mean, I know he wanted to join the government a while ago and we kept refusing him again and again and again, but, you know, don't worry, we'll eventually let him join and then he'll listen to everything we say. And then so Rocks is like, "You bastard!" You know, and he's just like, thy current disposition is quite similar. Now make haste. So now at this point, the entire time this conversation has been going on, Imu's tendrils have been pumping the evil into Rocks, and Rocks can no longer, like, resist it. So now Imu delivers the orders to Rocks D. Zebek. They say, put an end to Davy's dream. That is your order as a Domi Reversi puppet demon of Imu, right? So yeah, Imu has set this up for Harald, and we kind of already expected that. There was an abyss circle right there in Harald's castle, in Aris castle, right? So we knew at one point they were going to join the world government. Might have not lasted for very long, but at least communications began with that. And I don't know how that went down. Like, if Imu or one of the Gorosei or one of the Gods Knights approached Harald and was like, all right, tell you what, we'll let you into the government, but you gotta draw this weird, like, satanic circle in your castle. Don't freak out about it. Every sovereign of the world government has to do it. It's fine. And then Harald is like, all right, that seems a little weird, but okay. And then they draw the symbol, and then just opens up the Abyss channel for Harald to communicate with Imu and the Gorosei from then on, and started giving them some weird orders. And eventually, I think Harald probably resisted, and that's when he was Domi reversied, and that's when Loki and Jarl walked in on the room, and that's when he was being impaled by all of his guards, right? And I guess eventually we're going to loop back around to Loki's side of the story on that, but for right now, we're still at God Valley, right? Okay. So that's the plan there, and so with one last order, Imu drops rocks out of their grip, and he falls to the ground like a meteor. I mean, he was really high up there, remember? Like, Whitebeard and everybody had no idea what was even happening. They didn't hear any part of that conversation, right? So Imu drops rocks, he falls to the ground like a bunch of, rocks falls to the ground like a bag of hammers. Yeah, like a bag of hammers. Something... It's not a great analogy, but something heavy. Something really heavy. You know what? It's fine. Whatever. Let's just keep going. Anyway, he falls to the ground, right? Hits the ground, and Rocks is there, and he's kind of thinking to himself. He's like, oh, damn. I'm fading. I can't really remember who I am. I can't control my own actions, right? So Big Mom's the first one to run over and be like, Rocks, what? Are you okay? Did something happen to you up there? And then he kind of looks up, and it's just like... This is what he's saying. So at this point onward, Rocks is going to be like thinking other stuff, like his real personality is locked inside of him, just like, I don't want to hurt others, but really in this sense he's saying out loud, annihilate the lineage of the Davy clan with my own hands, snuff out all obstacles on God Valley. So he like rises up and he's way bigger now, and Rocks was already a big dude, nowhere near like Whitebeard's level, although now I think he's probably more comparable to Whitebeard's size. So he gets up, and then Big Mom is just like, oh, Rocks, did you grow bigger? Ooh la la. It's just like, I don't know. Anyway, he's like, oh, did you get bigger? It's like, out of the way. Their blood must be purged from the pages of history. Rocks! You know, and so he goes to attack Big Mom. At that moment, actually, no, he doesn't go after Big Mom first. This is something, I want to get your opinion on this, all right? So we're going to zoom into this panel here. So... Big Mom is the first one to run over. She's the one talking to Rocks. Rocks gets up like, ugh, their blood must be annihilated. Doesn't go after Big Mom, who's right in front of him. Goes after Kaido first. Immediately jumps up on top of Kaido and kind of like grabs his head, spins him around, and then just chucks him into a mountain. First thing he does. Now, upon doing that, Big Mom jumps into the fray. I don't know if it's because she views Kaido as like a little brother, like, hey, how dare you hit my little brother? Or if it's more of just like, hey, I was the one that was supposed to hit Kaido. He's the one that stole my devil fruit. I'm not really sure. Or it could just be that Rocks is clearly insane now and is attacking his crew members, so Big Mom retaliates. But anyway, she's like, damn you, Rocks, aren't we meant to be allies? So it's only then, after Big Mom directly goes to attack Rocks, that he retaliates and attacks her, okay? But Kaido was doing nothing. Literally, Kaido was just there. Kaido wasn't even like, hey, big bro Rocks, are you okay? What's going on? Do you need any help? You know? And then Rocks attacks Kaido. Kaido was just there. So Kaido does have the lineage of the ancient giants. Like the Onis, as Kaido mentions to Yamato during Wano, like, we are Oni Yamato, you know, or something like that. So maybe, you know, the order that he was given was attack and eliminate Davy's dream. So maybe it's like part of that order is also like annihilate anybody that has anything to do with the Void Sentry or the Will of D or the Promise or anything like that. The Ancient Giants being included in that. In fact, maybe the Ancient Giants even being members of the Davy clan or being connected to the Davy clan is not ridiculous. Rocks' form of Domi Reversi is a little different from the other giants. Maybe it's because he's resisting it a little better. But yeah, he grew fangs and his eyes are kind of like whited out and are kind of glowing. But other than that, and he got a little bit bigger. But Rocks is not holding like a pitchfork like all the other demon monsters are. He just has his sword. Really, the only thing that happened to him was his fangs and his eyes, and he got bigger, and that was it, right? So that's interesting there. So maybe either the fact that Kaido is an ancient giant or has ancient giant lineage, or the fact that Kaido is the dragon. Maybe that's something else that's connecting back, because we know dragons used to exist. So maybe given that order, he's immediately just like, need to annihilate Davy's dream. That involves dragons somehow. There's a dragon! Ah! You know? So, I don't know, but it's interesting. So, he attacks Kaido, throws him into the ground. Big Mom attacks him, and then Rocks retaliates there, smacks Big Mom clean back into a mountain. She's knocked out of the fight. And then we have Whitebeard. Edward Newgate. All right, I love this scene with Whitebeard here, okay, really. He just has this expression of, like, it's go time, all right? He's a smart man. He reads the situation. He has no idea what happened up there, but immediately he could tell something's been done to Rocks, his captain, and he just kind of like, you know, so Big Mom gets flung past him, and then Whitebeard's like, all right, this is what we're doing, let's go, right? And so he says to him, so we're in your way, huh, Rocks? Is that the way it is? And then Rocks is like, yeah, you are. Roar! And he goes to attack Whitebeard. Whitebeard takes out his arm, charges up his Quake Bubble, Gura no Mi powers, and we have an awesome double-page spread where Whitebeard and Rocks just boom! Just clash right there, where Rocks brings down a two-handed swing with his sword. Whitebeard, I thought he was going to use Murakumo Giri here. That would have been a perfect opportunity to, like, clash with Rocks. No, he just uses his elbow. Whitebeard's a boss. He's just like, you're not ready to be using Murakumo Giri, this Saijo Owazamono that I happen to have. No, my elbow's enough for you. Boom! You know? Okay, so they clash. The repercussions, the shockwave from that attack is so powerful. You know how God Valley has those two mountains right in the center that are like parallel to one another, right? The shockwaves crack half of the mountain and it falls to the ground. All right, pause for a moment. So one of the mountain halves has fallen. By the way, now looking at this, I mean, it's probably pretty obvious up until now. What if God Valley was relevant during the Void Century? I assume it was. And that mountain was a solid mountain at one point. Because it looks like it's somebody just took a sword and just, like, Getsuga Tensho'd right through that mountain. And that's why there's a big gap in the center. I'm sure I'm not the first person to say that. I just realized it just now. What if that was a full mountain at one point? Because it has a very weird shape. And then somebody carved right through the mountain during the Void Century, and it remained that way until now. The mountain is completely destroyed. Something else tying into a theory here. I believe we've all heard the theory of, what if God Valley is actually Thriller Bark? Because this is an island that came from the west. Thriller Bark was an island from the west that Gecko Moria eventually ended up getting his hands on, converting it into a pirate ship, Thriller Bark. A bark is a type of ship, and got it all the way into the Paradise part of the Grand Line. Still don't know how he did that, because that's on the other half of the Red Line. That'd be very difficult to do, but he was able to do it. Don't doubt Moria. Back in his day when he was inspired, he could do anything, right? Anywho, since one of the mountains has been destroyed, maybe the other half of the mountain will be destroyed. And at that point, God Valley will look just like any other mountain. I mean, any other island, really. That was the big one. Like, well, okay, I guess Thriller Bark could have been God Valley, but it would have had to have some big, you know, restructuring in terms of the topography of the place. The geography would have to completely shift. And we see the geography shifting in this chapter. There's still a whole mountain left. And maybe Thriller Bark isn't all of God Valley. Maybe it isn't the entire island. Maybe it's just a segment of it, but it's possible. It's not completely impossible here. So half of the mountain falls down. Everybody's running and trying to avoid getting crushed by this thing, obviously. Then we have a bunch of we have a bunch of scenes where, like, the Marines are trying to mobilize and the Celestial Dragons are boarding the ships to try to evacuate and get the hell out of there. You know, all warships, northeast coast, please evacuate from the island, pull back, because, you know, when that giant mountain collapses, it's going to be a huge dust cloud and just going to wipe out everything, and the shockwaves from that that are going to be immense. The Celestial Dragons are like, do not set sail without us, you will be put to death! And so they're being assholes. And then you have Rayleigh and Shockey in the southwest region with the rest of the Roger pirates. And somebody is on a Den Den Mushy communicating with Rayleigh. I'm not really sure who it is. Probably just another member of the crew. Come on, Rayleigh, the island's toast. We got to get out of here. I don't think it's Roger. I think it's just somebody else. And so he says, actually can't be Roger, because Rayleigh immediately says, oh, is Roger safe? Where's Roger at? We got to get going. So it's like, hey, move it. Just get back to the ship. Roger will meet us there. I'll be like, okay. So they're all running back to the ship. We see Taro. Taro is holding a treasure chest above his head that has, like, the Z's over it, like somebody is sleeping inside, and that's Baby Shanks. So Baby Shanks not only climbed into a treasure chest, somehow I guess Taro, like, didn't see the baby, and then shut the treasure chest and just picked it up and started running, and I guess Baby Shanks fell asleep. That's really funny. Also, so when we do see Baby Shanks in the treasure chest, it's part of a, bonus chapter that you got with Film Red in Japan. And you see Baby Shanks inside of the treasure chest, like sitting on like a pillow. We didn't see a pillow. And also when I think Roger opened up the treasure chest, he had the mustache in that flashback. So that's not going to be an exact one-to-one, because obviously Roger doesn't have a mustache here. Although it would be funny if Roger immediately after fighting Imu, he like levels up and he's just like, "Yorg, matey, that was a crazy battle. Do-do-do-do." And then, like, the mustache just poofs out of him like it's Frankie using his little hair button or whatever. That would be really funny. But no, Oda's probably gonna change around that scene a little bit when they find Shanks inside of the treasure chest. But yeah, he's there. So that's how the Roger Pirates end up with Shanks. Okay, meanwhile we have Dragon, who's not feeling too good. Dragon's on the ground. He's like, damn it, I couldn't save just one baby. I had two babies, then I lost one. I thought I could at least save the one, and then I lost that one too. Damn it. So Dragon's just on the ground, and that's the only time we see him in this chapter, just being completely upset over everything. It's just like, oh man, I suck. You know, like, that's Dragon. Don't worry, Dragon. You know, chin up. Everything will be fine. Everything will be okay. Always look on the bright side of life. There is no bright side on God Valley. Wait, there is, because Kuma is there. So I thought Kuma and Ginny and Ivankov, I thought they dipped a while ago. I thought they got the hell out of there before Imu and Saturn showed up, to be honest with you, because there was that scene where Kuma was using the Paw powers to send everybody away, and then it was immediately after that scene that, like, Saturn and Imu descended. So I assumed they got out of there before all this nonsense occurred. No, they're still on the island. Ivankov, Kuma, and Ginny are still there. Kuma is very winded, very tired, and he's still covered in arrows and everything, but he's like, no, even if there's anybody left on this island, I have to save them. And Ivankov's like, no, Kuma, give it a rest. We've saved so many people already. You've saved hundreds of people. We need to get going now. This whole island is going down, and we've got to get out of here. We've got to abandon ship. And Kuma's like, yeah, but even if there's just one more person out there, I got to make sure to save them. Kuma glances through the trees, and who does he see? He sees Eris and Teach running in the distance. Kuma, you're going on the thumbnail in this video. Oh my god, Kuma is the savior. We cut over to see Captain John. He's not dead yet. He does die eventually, but not yet. He gets up and he's like, damn, Gonzui, I'm gonna kill him. And then we cut over to Gonzui and Shiki. Gonzui has been therefore defeated by Shiki, because Shiki was kind of talking to Gonzui. He's like, hey, why did you attack John? And Gonzui's like, well, you know, he was going to steal all that treasure. You know, each of those treasure chests are worth 1 billion berries. And Shiki's like, oh, really now? And so, bam, smacked Gonzui, stole a treasure chest, and began to float away. Shiki being, like, the only one to have an ability that would allow him to very easily get off this island, right? Because he can just fly. Him and Kuma, I would suppose, and Kaido now as well. But anyway, Gonzui's like, asshole, you'll never make it off this island alive. And Shiki's just laughing as he's running away or flying away with his treasure chest. It's like, no one gets the drop on me. Spoiler alert, a lot of people will end up getting the drop on Shiki. Anyway, so he goes to run away, and then we see Rocks arriving where Eris and Teach are. He literally just grabs 2 tree trunks and just like rips them out of the ground and just appears. And then Eris looks upon her husband in this form with the fangs and the glowy eyes. And so he's like, she begins to cry, and she's just like, you lost, didn't you? I'm so sorry, it's our fault. You faced that thing to save us, even though you weren't ready yet. Now, what does that mean, weren't ready yet? is this some, like, prophecy or something? Like, Rocks needed to find a particular thing or train with a particular something in order to... Because Rocks was already plenty strong. Like, in terms of, like, hockey and swordsmanship, Rocks was, like, top tier. So... maybe Eris was referring to something kind of like when Roger reached the One Piece and was just like, oh, we got here too early. Maybe this was like, oh, you fought against Imu too early. You weren't ready. You weren't ready. You know, I don't know about that. So anyway, Eris grabs onto Teach, holds him very tightly, and just tries to book it to the sea, because that's the only thing she can think of. She's like, okay, I'm just going to jump into the sea and try to swim somewhere. It's not a good plan, but it's the only plan I have right now, because my husband is behind me about ready to kill me, right? So... she's shouting out that we have no choice but to jump. I won't let the Davy clan end here. We'll survive no matter what. And then at that exact moment, the marine ships on the coast spot Eris and Teach. They're now running out onto a cliffside out of the forest. It's like, escapees detected. Load the cannons. And then Eris is like, okay, well, we tried, Teach. We tried. You know, because, like, what do you do at that point? Your husband is a giant demon eldritch monster behind you, like, "Rah!" And then cannons are being fired at you. At that point, Eris is just like, all right, I tried. Sorry, kid. You know, and at that exact moment, Kuma dives over, uses the pawpaw flowers, to just, pop, and then just pops Eris and Teach out of there. Just poofs them away. And then at that exact moment, the cannons are still in midair, and Rocks is still bringing down his sword, and then Kuma is just like, bye. And then he pops away, all right? Now, by the way, for a moment there, I was freaking out because I was like, did Kuma just leave Ivankov and Ginny behind? But no, he probably sent Eris and Teach the same place they sent everybody else that escaped the island. I'm sure Kuma just used his power there to, like, zip him back over to where Ivankov and Ginny were. And he's like, whoa, that was weird. Kuma, are you okay? Yeah, I saved those two people, but there was this big scary guy with a sword. We got to get out of here now. I think it's time for us to go. I think you were right, Ivankov. All right, everybody, get ready for transmission. Instant transmission. And then they zip away to the Sorbet Kingdom. So, Eris and Teach, Eris specifically said, we'll meet you again on Lulusia. I don't know if that's still the plan, given the fact that she saw Rocks like that, so maybe that's not the plan anymore. We know that Kuma can only send people to places he's previously been before. Now, he's a kid at this point, so the only places he's been is, like, Sorbet Kingdom, here on God Valley, and, like, Marijois. Although, I guess he can't send people directly to Marijois because Kuma, when he was the PX-0, had to, like, slam into the red line and then climb it, so there might be an altitude limit. But at any rate, it would make sense that the place he sent everybody, because they're also in the middle of, like, a war zone, and there's no time to be like, okay, well, where did you live? Oh, okay, in the North Blue? Okay, I'll send you there. Where did you live? Oh, you lived in the Grand Line. Nice. What island? Oh, okay, I'll send you there. There's no time for that. So I think Kuma is just like sorbet, 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 sorbet. You know, first express ticket to Sorbet Kingdom, which is probably where Eris and Teach just ended up, okay? It's the only place I can think of where they would end up, right? And so eventually Kuma and Ivankov and Ginny are going to go back to Sorbet as well. Ivankov is then going to leave and go back to Kamabaka, right? And then Ginny and Kuma stay on the island and we get their sad backstory, all right? That wasn't all sad. Some of it was good. Anyway, so I assume everybody ended up on Sorbet, and then they were like, oh, thank you, Kuma, for that. We're all now going to go our separate ways and find our way back to our original island. Eris and Teach would have most likely done that as well. I don't think they stayed on Sorbet for very long, so they would have left, and they would have been like, okay, well, we got to go to Lulusia, I guess. That's maybe Eris's homeland, and that's the only place they can think to go. Lulusia's in the Paradise side of the Grand Line. Sorbet Kingdom's in the South Blue, so it does border the Paradise, so it is possible for them to reach it. I assume they eventually did end up on Lulusia. That's the only thing I can think of right now. But yeah, Kuma saved him. Kuma, you remind me once again why you're one of the best One Piece characters. All right, so Kuma disappears, and, you know, the cannons hit the shore at the same time Rocks brings down his sword, so just a massive explosion happens on the shore. Imu is then looking down and is just like, Davy, next. extinguish all who remain on the island. So now that there's no more any members, I guess, of the Davy clan, I mean, there are the ones that got Domi reversied and then subsequently defeated by Rocks, but now that Eris and Teach are gone, Imu is just like, oh, son of a... Or maybe Imu thinks they are dead? Did Imu see everything with Kuma and did actually know? Because Imu doesn't seem agitated. Imu doesn't see like, ah, they got away! No! You know, Imu doesn't seem like that. Imu's just like, ah, okay, they're gone. Now, Rocks, while I have you here, eliminate everybody else on the island. So just giving like an order just to kill everyone else. Okay? So we get a scene with the Marines, evacuating all the Celestial Dragons and are being like, Vice Admiral Garp, please hurry back. And Garp is like, I told you guys to get the hell out of here. How long are you going to stick around? Same thing with the Oro Jackson. They're like, Roger, where the hell are you? You got to get back to the ship. And then Roger's like, I'm fine. Let me know when you guys are, everyone's aboard and everyone's setting sail. I'll make sure to make it there. So Garp and Roger are staying behind. We all know where this is going, right? Okay. So we have Rocks now just stomping around the island, just attacking random pirates, killing everybody. And then finally we get the last double page spread of the chapter, where Garp and Roger at the same time just kind of like, bring it on, Rocks! And they just shout to get his attention. And then at that moment, Imu was like watching from all of this from above. And it was just like, Davy? But yeah, that's right. He says, Imu's like, Davy? Question mark? Maybe referring to Garp, or it would have to be Roger, right? Although Roger's more like Joy Boy's descendant than Davy. This whole thing is confusing. I don't know about what's going on here. We're probably going to get a Void Century flashback at some point. Anyway, at that point, Rocks, he has wings. He does have wings. Did he always have wings? No, I don't think he always had wings. I think he just grew the wings, because when he came out of the tree line, I don't think he had wings. And I don't think when he attacked Whitebeard and everybody, I don't think he had wings either. Okay, well, he has wings now. Okay, so he unfurls his bat wings, and he lands right where Garp and Roger were for the ultimate standoff. Garp is just like, what the hell have you turned into, Rocks? And Roger takes out his sword and just like, I won't let you go after my crew. At that moment, Rocks begins to telepathically communicate with Garp and Roger. Now, Roger can canonically hear the voice of all things, so this kind of makes sense here. Garp... I don't know if Garp is hearing this too. I think he is. The implication is he is. So Rocks is now telepathically communicating with them. Roger, Garp. And then Roger's like, what? Whose voice is this? Please, end me. End it now. And he's like crying, okay, as he then charges for both of them. And then, Garp takes out his fist, Roger takes out his sword, and then that's the end of the chapter as Rocks, Garp, Roger begins to versus everybody, kicks off, charging, and then just says, oh, please, just end it now. And he's weeping through the visage of Domi Reversi, like he can't stop his physical body from moving. But he's like, please, just end it. I don't want to be this anymore, okay? And so the climax of the God Valley incident, end of the chapter, no break next week. In my long, storied career as a fire mage, I have to say, this was a bomb chapter. This was a crazy fire chapter right here. Oh, dude, okay. So, yeah, I don't know. Does this confirm Garp can hear the voices of all things? Or is this like a specific thing that Rocks was doing? Like, I am communicating with you through some hockey bullshit that I'm just making up. Here you go, please. I don't want to do this anymore, right? Okay. So, the fight between Roger and Garp and Rocks, that did happen. Roger Garp did team up for this battle, so Sengoku was at least correct about this. He either left out a few crucial nuggets of information, or Garp just didn't tell him about any of this. But this is how it went down, and yeah, I'm thinking this is going to conclude with Rocks' death. I don't think, the way that Rocks is, and since he's crying, I think it's sort of like a Terminator, like, I cannot self-terminate, you must lower me into the steel, kind of shit, right? That is like, I cannot self-terminate. Roger, Garp, you must be the one to end me. Rah! I think it's probably something like that. So, This is going to be a wild fight. I mean, I don't know. Next chapter is just all this fight. Like, I'd be okay with that. I mean, this was set up a while ago. It was set up, like, during, like, after Act 1 of Wano, we learned about this. Okay, so that was, like, chapter 925. It was, like, chapter 1164 we're on right now. So, yeah, that's well over 200 chapters ago. We were establishing this battle. So, yeah, let's do it, Oda. Let's go full on with this battle. I want to see some haki. I want to see maybe some lore about Rocks' swordsmanship. Maybe they reveal that a little bit. We get to see a bunch of attacks from Garp. We've got a bunch of attacks from Roger. The thing is, nobody here has any Devil Fruit abilities. That's the crazy thing. Unless maybe Rocks' sword has a Devil Fruit power. Maybe. Some people have been saying that, but I'm even kind of finding that a little bit dubious. So this would be great that this is a battle between these three characters that really don't have Devil Fruit powers and are just really crazy good at swordsmanship and haki, and that's it. And then Garp doesn't even have a sword. He just punches things. All right, so yeah, this is hype. I would say one more chapter, maybe not the whole chapter. I would like it to be the whole chapter, but maybe like half of the chapter is this fight, and then that kind of concludes God Valley, and then we start moving away. Maybe at the end of the next chapter, you know, Roger jumps on the Oro Jackson, Garp gets on his ship, they sail away, Rocks dies on God Valley, the other mountain is destroyed in this melee that's going to ensue, and then, you know, he just sits there and we get Rocks' last words. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the next chapter, because Oda really likes to name the chapters where people die after them, you know, so I wouldn't be surprised if the next chapter was just titled, you know, Captain of the Rocks Pirates, Rocks D. Zebek, or Captain of the Rocks Pirates, Davy D. Zebek. Something like that. That would be really cool. All right. So anyway, yeah, that's the chapter. Kuma MVP, easily. He is the most valuable player, you know, play of the game, easily right there. And we had a really cool... What happened with Whitebeard? Where did Whitebeard go? I know where Whitebeard went. I know where it's most likely where Whitebeard ended up, okay? We probably did not see it, but it's probably Garling that got involved, and then Whitebeard went off to fight Garling. Because way later, well, I guess later from this perspective, a long time ago from our perspective, when Shanks met with Whitebeard on the deck of the Moby Dick, and I made a video about this once, when, after we learned about Garling's existence in the Figarland family and everything, so Whitebeard said, you know, even looking at your face makes that scar that bastard gave me ache. So at the time we thought maybe Blackbeard was the one that gave Whitebeard the scar, right? But now, and then maybe people thought Shamrock for a while too. I think it's probably most likely Garling. Garling fought against Whitebeard at one point, gave him a scar, and then he was referring to like, oh, I'm looking at the son of Garling. Every time I look at your face, the scar that bastard gave me aches all anew. I'm looking at it that way, okay? That seems to make the most sense, and also what happened with Whitebeard. And then, I guess Big Mom and Kaido got knocked out. I guess they'll regain consciousness and get the hell out of there. But yeah, there's still a few loose ends that need to be tied up, and then this big battle between Roger, Garp, and Rocks, absolutely. Okay, but yeah, let me know what you think down below on Rocks and Imu's little conversation they had there about a fate that binds Mu and Davy, and Eris's line about how you weren't ready yet. And the prophecy and the promise, and who are you more afraid of, Davy D. Jones or Joy Boy? You know, that type of shit. Let me know about that down below. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you all have a good, happy Halloween. I got a special Halloween video that's going to be released on the channel later tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That'll be out, so look forward to that. Now, before I go, though, as I am the Fire Mage, I just have one thing to kind of say to you, something that I have acquired in my quests and my various adventures. I have this strange liquid in a red bottle that has an ominous skull on it. Yeah. So, do I drink the weird mystery liquid, or do I not? Choose now!